Hello everyone, this is Pradeep from Sydney in Australia, talking to you in the middle of a lockdown. But that's the new normal. There'll be lockouts, there'll be lockdowns, but we shall carry on with our thought leading sessions on XR, VR, AR, or whatever it is. And by way of introduction, my name is Pradeep Khanna. I am the Executive Director Asia Pacific for VRARA AR Association, as well as I am the CEO of Global Mindset. This is just another session that we are going to present today on what's happening in the world of extended reality, mixed reality, augmented reality, virtual reality, or the real reality. Let me first introduce the leaders. We've got a great round of industry leaders over here, and we get to you from 4 continents. And let me count the continents. This is me, Pradeep, from Sydney in Australia. Australia is a country as well as a continent. Next, from Sydney, I go to Bangalore. And from Bangalore, we've got Raghuram Joshi. He is the Senior General Manager for Bosch, the global giant, which is very strong into enterprise business as well as into XR. From Bangalore, should I go to Germany first or should I go to Scotland first? Now, who's still within EEC? Oh, Germany. So let me go to Germany first. And we have with us Hubert. Hubert is Senior Manager Digital IT with Rolls-Royce Power Systems in Germany. Guten Morgen, Hubert.
Guten Abend.
Wie geht es Ihnen? But German apart, I thought that I was going to get a Rolls-Royce car, but here I am getting generators. But never mind, I can be happy with generators also. And from Germany, I go to Scotland. And whom do we talk to? We talk to Alex. Alex.
Hello.
Hey, Alex, you got a beard. Oh man.
Absolutely.
He is the product marketing manager, IoT and mixed reality for none other than Microsoft. And when you blend IoT and XR, you know what happens. So I don't know whether this is the digital twin of Alex or is it Alex himself. But never mind, in the brave new world, we'll accept both or any of the either. So with that, let's kickstart the discussion. And I want to go to Raghu first. Raghu, enterprise is the name of the game now. Well, there are a lot of people who are working on the consumer side, but let's talk about enterprise. So what is happening in the enterprise value chain in regard to extended reality? Is it like what we talk in terms of AEC, which is architecture, engineering and construction? That in architecture we are looking at VR, and when we go into engineering and construction, it tends to go more into AR. But what exactly is happening? So over to you, Raghu.
Yeah, thanks, Pradeep, and thank you for inviting me to this panel. And it's really interesting to speak to you about the emerging trends on the manufacturing side with respect to XR. Yeah, you talked about all the different flavors of XR at the beginning of as introduction. And to me, it's turning into a reality. When we look into the entire value chain, it's not just the processes, but also beyond the processes, whether it is working with people, having the right kind of engagement, or even expanding the reach of the enterprise. We see AR, VR playing a very, very important role. Maybe I'll just take a minute to just take you through some depth into what I'm talking about. Yeah, when you talk about a typical manufacturing enterprise, you have the design and development wing of it, where we do the product design. Then we have the actual manufacturing or the production. Then comes along somewhere around there, logistics, both inbound and outbound. And then, of course, once it's in the field, you have the customer experience. To top it all, you also have the trainings which go along in each of these processes. So if I look at it today, we have been able to bring in XR in each of these phases. So for example, let me take the first example of a fuel injection pump. So, I mean, being Bosch, that's a favorite topic to discuss, even though electrical is the new buzzword today, but still. Um, so the designing of fuel injection systems is a very intricate thing to do, and it is kind of driving a philosophy for each vehicle for which we design this fuel injection system. And typically, each of these designs take many weeks or months. But we have been able to simulate this whole mathematical model using AR, wherein people could actually see the simulation of how an injected design would actually result in the fuel combustion within the chamber. See, for example, you see here, the left side, you actually see the mathematical model and you can see the numbers. And there you see how the fuel will flow through the chamber as it actually is injected into the chamber. So these are the simulations which have helped immensely. It has reduced the time to design. It has reduced the possibility of assumptions between the partners working on this topic. Maybe I can also talk about a very small example coming from the logistics side. So in logistics, we have combined AR together with IoT. So typically when a vehicle lands at your gate, so you end up doing your inspection. So we have tried to bring in some amount of AR there, wherein the person who is actually receiving at the gate, he is able to check the conditions based on the data which is acquired through the sensors using the IoT system. And that's connected to the AR system, and he's able to check whether the temperature was maintained through the journey, whether there were a lot of jerks which could possibly damage the products inside. So these are some examples these are real examples where we are actually using these capabilities. Now, I don't even call them as skills or solutions, but they're real capabilities within the processes.
Oh, that is fabulous. One comment that I can make is that, you see, I'm going to be 66 years this year, and nothing much seems to have changed all through the years. Because when I was a kid, I used to go for magic shows. But here again, I'm seeing magic over here. Is it magic or is it extended reality? Good question.
Yeah, as long as you are able to explain it, yeah, that's quite okay.
Let me go from Raghu to Scotland. I know that I went to Germany earlier, but I have to even out the planes, So let me go to Scotland and let me ask Alex. Alex, so from where you are sitting, where you are combining XR and IoT, so what do you see? And I also want to know that, do we talk now digital twins or digital triplets? Or what is the flavor of the month? But first, what do you see in XR and manufacturing and from different aspects of realities?
Well, yeah, first, thanks again, Pradeep, for inviting me to this panel. Really exciting. And when it comes to industrial manufacturing and we're talking about XR, AR, I think it's unfair to say, AR is making massive grounds compared to VR and stuff like that. I think really when you talk about the industry, you have to take a little bit of a level down and say, okay, within industrial manufacturing, which scenarios are better for VR or better for AR and stuff like that. And so if I'm talking about, and I think Raghu kind of mentioned it at the start, about the different kind of cycles within an industrial manufacturing process. If we go back to the start of that, which is your design and engineering side, I see virtual reality as having massive impact in that space. In my previous role, I was at an automotive OEM in the UK, and in our design studio, we'd have virtual reality headsets everywhere. And from a Microsoft perspective, we're investing quite heavily with our Windows mixed reality headsets. But what we find with virtual reality is it works well in those back office design engineering spaces. But when you bring the frontline worker into the conversation, the people that are at the front line, turning the wrench, as it were, to assemble your product, that's when the AR and mixed reality kind of conversation comes into it. Because what you're doing is you're bringing digital content into the real world and making their job easier, which then drives efficiencies and things like that. And so what I've got is a little quick video, which is kind of the topic of the day, really, in terms of space. And it's a little bit about what NASA and Lockheed Martin are doing.
Oh man, I thought you were going to show me Elon Musk. But
NASA
will also do.
Well, exactly. Well, the thing is, it is topic of the day, really, because of obviously the inspiration for SpaceX mission and everything like that, right? So,
sure. Let's go for it.
No worries. All right. So I'll quickly play this video, and then we can have a quick chat about manufacturing and mixed reality and stuff like that.
Orion is the only spacecraft that can take humans into deep space, like the moon and to Mars. We're just finishing that development phase, moving into production, where we'll be launching Orion about once a year. We're using mixed reality technologies to benefit our programs, requirements, and challenges so that we can produce spacecraft at lower costs with higher quality and less time. For Orion, we're using mixed reality to assemble the crew seat. When a technician puts on a HoloLens, they instantly see the work instruction instead of having to go through stacks of rectangular data, whether it's paper or another form of a screen. It understands the environment. It's anchored to the structure, and that allows us to place content within the environment. Being able to see the same design together and look through different options allows us to make those decisions more quickly. With every activity, we're seeing significant reductions in touch labor. We see increases in quality. What we found was that we could take an 8-hour activity and reduce it down to 45 minutes. We see a reduction in cost. We haven't had a single error that's been documented, which is really exciting. We're partnering with Scope AR, who's using Azure Mixed Reality services to bring all of this to life. Mixed reality allows us to move more quickly from concept and design, spanning into tests and operations, and possibly even for astronauts in space.
Very interesting, Alex. And a question which comes to my mind is, you see, Elon Musk has been wavering on whether he should accept bitcoins or not. Is Microsoft going to accept bitcoins?
I don't know the cryptocurrencies very well, Pradeep. I can't really go into too many comments. I know blockchain as a technology is a very interesting one, but I can't say if Microsoft will be accepting Bitcoin anytime.
I'm being told to focus. So back to mixed realities. So yeah, this is a very interesting one. I particularly like the way the showcase of augmented reality over there. Now, from this video and from your experience, is there something which kind of stands out in terms of the enterprise and the manufacturing side?
Definitely. So I think that video is a really interesting one to kind of level set and show, the Halo project of NASA and Lockheed Martin and what they're able to do. But I think what's key in that is the little nuggets of information, bringing an 8-hour activity down to 45 minutes and, reducing errors to 0. And it's not just NASA and Lockheed Martin and these like Halo companies that are able to achieve that. It's quite regular, normal, run-of-the-mill companies that are using this technology today to make massive impact. So I guess that would be my kind of key take is that, decision makers in organizations around the world are not really caring about AR from it's a cool technology perspective. They want to see, okay, well, what's the business impact? And it's these things like reducing errors to 0, like we saw in that story, or we could go over to Toyota, one of our other customers, who've seen labor costs in certain processes reduced by 75% by using mixed reality technology. So it's really interesting. And it's these kind of statistics and business value that the technology is providing that's really important. And we need to kind of take a step away from, hey, this is a super cool technology that we should be innovating with, but let's look at what it can actually achieve and the business impact that it can have. I'd say that would be my big take.
Well, look, remember, that I let you speak without interrupting you. So maybe you can ship a HoloLens 2 to me in Sydney. Well, we'll talk about it another.
And let's take that offline, Pradeep. I'll see what I can do.
Let's go across to Germany and let's talk to Hubert. Hubert, I am very keen to understand your journey, your XR journey. And I also want to understand you as a background. Who is the real Hubert? Are you a VR person? Are you an IT person? Are you a business person? So will the real Hubert please stand up and tell us about himself?
First of all, Pradeep, I would really thank you for inviting me to that session. I'm really excited to be part of that great panel and to talk to these great industry experts. And just to give you a little background about myself, so I have been in product management for roughly the last 10 years, started with household appliances, then moved to something with heavy iron, and somehow ended up in the IoT department or digital department of Rolls-Royce Power Systems. And that's what actually brought me now into classical IT. At the end of the day, right now I'm with my team supporting the engineering community of Rolls-Royce Power Systems with solutions like CAD solutions, PLM, and as well the AR and VR technology as part of my team.
And that is fabulous. Do you know that I also started life as an electrical engineer? I can still design switchyards and substations. But anyway, back to you. So how has your journey been within Rolls-Royce? Like, when did you get started into XR?
So for Rolls-Royce Power Systems, the part of Rolls-Royce that I'm working with, our journey started many years ago, actually, with virtual reality. We built up in our headquarters in Friedrichshafen a big VR room for design reviews for our engineers, as well as for customers and as well as for training. And what the COVID situation overall taught us, that this big VR rooms at just one location don't bring us further anymore. And we have started to adjust our strategy and now have moved for design reviews and engineering, actually based on feedback of the engineers, back to just CAD based design reviews and just give them big screens. And they are totally happy with it. On the other hand side, for customer design reviews and as well customer presentations, we have moved to small VR setups with smaller devices, like just glasses for all the guys on the locations where our customers will be. So for example, in Italy, where we have our yacht competence center for the yacht market. And to go with what Alex said, AR is starting to play a very big role in manufacturing for us, but as well as for training and trainings that we conduct by ourselves for our customers, or even training that we sell to our customers. Because from the products that we sell is a real B2B business, and the products, the engines that we do have there in service life for 20, 30 years. So maintenance plays a very big role.
One question that I want to ask you, you are part of IT. Is that right?
Yep, that's correct.
Is business driving XR or is IT driving XR?
It's a common approach. So the challenge for us at IT right now is that we have several business departments driving XR, and we have to combine their requirements and requests into one technology stack that we can run for them, make sure that it's safe, secure, make sure that it's efficient, and they can complete their use cases with it and leverage the savings that Alex just showed us from Lockheed, that we can do the same achievements. But therefore, it's really important that we have just that one proper tech stack that we can run. And what we from digital IT push for, that we put the human in the center. So not just come from a fancy technology and say, hey, that's cool, that's something that we can sell. We want, okay, we want to understand what's the problem for the user that we're going to fix. So if you have someone in training working with a HoloLens or in a factory, that's absolutely fine. But if you have a technician in the machine room of a ship, 40 degrees Celsius, 99% humidity, and you have to wear a HoloLens where you even have any space in front of the engine, that's then the wrong device. There has something else to be there.
Well, love it. Now, I remember that you passed on some file to me. Would you like me to put on that file? Because you see, the customer always comes first, and you represent the customer side. So you say yes, and pronto, the file comes.
Yeah, that absolutely lovely. Please share that. That's our latest example on what we did on training material using AR technology.
Okay.
I was going to say, Pradeep, whilst you're bringing that up, I could make a comment on the IT versus business conversation you were talking about. And I think when it comes to IT are really great at bringing up the initial concept, but when it comes to rolling that out across the business, you really need that executive business sponsorship. So I think for POCs and innovation, IT can lead, but when it comes to wider rollouts across the business, you really need that business buy-in and executive sponsorship.
Alex,
exactly. And
yep, you're saying something, Hubert?
Yeah, I'm totally agreeing to this, and we do have that definitely at Power Systems, and now for next year it will get a real push on our side. So I'm really excited about this one. And now, Pradeep, if you could play the video, it's actually.
I will, but before I put on the video, I'll just add on to what both of you have said. My view actually is that it is not just a joint this thing, but it has to be business which has to be driving it. Because end of the day, it is where is the value being added on, and the value obviously comes, on the customer side, and therefore, and who owns the customer? It is the business side, and I see technology supporting that. But these are only personal views of mine. But let's play the video and let's hear what Hubert has to talk about.
So what we have here is a training video for a technician how to exchange a fuel injector. So actually the thing Raghu talked about. And in this video, we are combining technical documentation that we already have on site, like this video, how to change the sealings for an injector, together with instructions that we have and the CAD models that we have into one training, even here the CAD model for the special tool that you need to do an injector exchange. And this is a really great thing to, even here you can see actually the drawing as well available. So everything combined what we have in one video. This shows as well at the same time the challenge that we do have, because our engines are in service life, like I said, 20 to 30 years. So we need to be capable of providing updates to the documentation for the next 20 to 30 years. So it's actually all about data, data, and data.
Love it, Hubert, love it. I love the video, but I also like the hand, which is, coming out like this. It reminded me of Oliver Twist, with a hand out and saying, "Please, sir, can I have some more food?" kind of a thing. Jokes apart, let's stop the share screen and go back. And on what you spoke, I want to pick up with Raghu. Raghu, you see, training not appears, but we all know that training is a very, very big use case when it comes to not only manufacturing, but all along the value chain. What are your thoughts and comments on that?
So what we have seen is this is one place where I think there are very less discussions on ROI when it comes to using any of these technologies. Yeah, because the result of any of these capabilities is seen in a very short period of time. So you don't have to really do a big calculation to explain the ROI here. Having said that, I see this being used at two levels. One is we talk about I 4.0 scenarios, right? And even the best of the workers, they need to be trained on different variants. They need to be continuously trained. And at the same time, we have to make sure that when they're actually doing the job, because it's a very monotonous work that they do, and there are so many variants with which they have to deal with. So what we have done is, in one of the examples, we have put these two together, the AR as well as computer vision together, so that in the assembly line, if the operator is making a mistake, he immediately gets a message saying that, okay, maybe something he has made a wrong step, or or the assembly is incorrect for this particular variant. So that's how we close loop that. But when it comes to the training to be on the line itself, the operator who works with the system. So here is where it gets a bit interesting, because in a typical scenario, an operator can get trained only when the workstation is available and not in use or being maintained. So he can go there and actually try his hands on. But in this particular case, maybe I want to show a demo here, which we have rolled out across about a dozen plants of Bosch, and we have been getting really good reviews, feedbacks from people who are using it, because it helps. You actually don't need a workstation here. So this is an example. So the operator is getting trained, and if you see on the back, it's actually training him step by step. So it actually builds the muscle memory here. And if he's making a mistake, it will immediately detect that, okay, he should have probably used a different approach. And here we have different modes. You can guide him to do something. You can go in depth on a particular step, or you can even get into a test mode to see whether the operator is really ready to be on the line. Otherwise, you will end up in quality issues down the line. So in summary, I would say this is one place where I would say there is a real impact, and it's also recognized by the business.
No, I love it, and I have just two comments. One is that not only does it build muscle memory, but also muscle strength, as the person no longer has to go to the gym, for.
Maybe we'll get there one day.
and then second thing is that we talked about ROI. I remember the time when I was speaking at a conference in Auckland in New Zealand, and there was a gentleman who was a manager with some oil company. And both Australia and New Zealand are very remote places. So I was in the conference, I was talking about that, look, use cases is no longer, there are a dime a dozen use cases floating around. The question is that how do we talk in terms of a business case? How do we talk in terms of a ROI? And this gentleman during the break comes up to me and said that, look, for us it's a no-brainer. If I have to send somebody for remote servicing, man, I have to spend so many thousands of dollars in just the airfare, etc. kind of a thing. The remote service model is such a great thing, I can just go and buy HoloLens. I said, man, you are my poster boy, for XR. But anyway, now.
So Pradeep, sorry to interject. I have an example for that, because we did implement another example in the on the line again. So here is a situation wherein the person, the operator, needs to change the components, and typically it's done by an expert from time to time. So maybe I will show a short demo of that here. So normally you would end up having a downtime and call the expert, and then he comes around and then he fixes things so that the operator can start working again. So here you have the actual operator. This is not the expert. The operator is being guided by the expert, looking into the images that he sees, and then he's able to actually change the component in real time. And then, I mean, we don't even discuss ROI in such cases.
I couldn't agree more. Wonderful. Now, another thought which comes to my mind is that in most of these cases, they are blending, AI, ML into it. So, because, it takes you through an AI-generated troubleshooting chart, and then you kind of leverage the XR. Are you doing that also? Raghu?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, AI is kind of becoming integral, because it's not just using it as an end product, but in each of the process steps, you have seen that the AI is getting integrated. So the data which is now derived, I spoke about the logistics use case. It actually has AI and AR together, because there we are checking how the container moved from point A to point B in a particular scenario, and then feeding it back to the person at the gate. and helping him take a decision whether he should allow this vehicle to move inside the premises or not. I mean, on the face of it, as you mentioned some time ago, it sounds like magic, but it's really a combination of AR, IoT, and AI.
And I couldn't agree more. In fact, nowadays I don't even classify AI as an emerging technology. It's already a mainstream technology at the moment, Now, when I look at the three of you, it tells me that, you see, it really requires a good amount of collaboration between different stakeholders. On one side, you are there representing Bosch, which is from a content side and a solution side. You've got Alex from, the XR side, and you've got Hubert, who's the customer. And I also note that you guys are located in different parts of the world. So I suppose the question that I have is that how did it take a lot of effort to build up this collaborative ecosystem, and that also in a global delivery form? So any thoughts, comments from all three of you? Going with you, Raghu, first.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, I mean, to some extent, the current situation has brought it out a bit more stronger than in the past. So we used to do it out of compulsion in the past, but now we realize that this is how it's going to be, because there will be some people who will be closer to the customer, who can sit with them and do the design thinking, get the concept ready, and then there will be a development team, probably the other side of the world, who would be building these simulations or POCs or even end products, and then the whole thing has to somehow come back and close loop in what we call as the agile model, so that the customer gets the whole thing to validate. Yeah. And we are using DevOps in these particular scenarios. The other thing which comes along with that is, of course, we all know the large files that we have to work with when we talk about any of these technologies. So the collaboration tools which help us in running these kind of projects across the continents, across geographies, and it's enabled completely through, I would say, templates which we have learned from the IT projects, and the way we collaborate there, the way we share information, the way we do continuous integration, and also rollout, because here the immersive experience gets enhanced only when customer buys into it. And for that, we have to give him an iterative experience. And that is what is enabled by this backbone, if I may call it.
Oh, very well said. And I particularly like the point that you made, because while we know that IT outsourcing and offshoring or nearshoring and business process outshoring or nearshoring is now getting commoditized, but the valuable work done in those, the knowledge which has been built up is now getting adapted and becomes a kind of a model for which to take on.
Absolutely.
The challenge, of course, in XR is that you see, when you look at the supply side, you find that 75 to 80% entities are startups. But that's a different subject altogether, and we'll talk about it in a different forum. But now I want to go across to Hubert. Now, Hubert, from a customer's perspective, and you've got a solution provider who's located in Bangalore. You've got another stakeholder, who's potentially your device supplier who's sitting in Scotland. So was it easy, difficult to get this collaborative system in place?
So actually, and there's one thing I would like to pick up with what I've said before. It's all about the data. So for us, it was important when we looked at our partners who we work together with on AR or XR, that we come up at the end of the day with an integrated tool chain. So from the documentation models up to managing them, releasing them, and at the end, offering the user who's building, for example, the training, an easy way to produce his use case. So For us, the key part here is really to build this integrated tool chain. And to be honest, working together with multiple partners all over the world just became standard throughout the past years. Even before COVID, for me, it was absolutely normal to have a dev team which is spread over the US, over India and Germany, and even UK.
Fabulous. Let's move across to Alex. Alex, I suppose the question, the first question which comes to my mind, of course, I have this question of this collaborative ecosystem. But one of the things is when you talk to people, do you also talk about things like cybersecurity?
Absolutely. And I think
discussion?
Definitely. I think when it comes to enterprise solutions in general, whether that's an XR solution, an IoT solution, a server solution, cybersecurity is one of the most important pillars when it comes to that. I actually sit within the Azure business, and I can tell you that Azure security is one of the most invested parts of the business and one of the most critical to Microsoft specifically. So I would say, yeah, with any solution, if you want to integrate successfully within organizations, you need to work with cybersecurity departments to make sure that all the internal security requirements are met. So in answer to that question, I would say absolutely yes. It's not just an XR thing, it's a IT transformation question. Every single solution that gets integrated must be cybersecurity. That must be considered. That would be my point on that.
No, I couldn't agree more with you, because one of the biggest concerns as we become more and more into the digital way of doing things, the cybersecurity risks are, this is, I think, the number one factor which needs to be factored in, and especially from an end-to-end perspective.
Totally. And Pradeep, on that as well, what's worth noting is with devices like HoloLens or virtual reality, they are devices packed with sensors, with cameras. And then when you're talking about bringing those devices into places that have sensitive IP, there's lots of other conversations that you want to think about in terms of protecting your own intellectual property. So those are the kind of conversations that you want to have, not only from a cybersecurity perspective, but also in terms of protecting your IP. So yeah, all of these things definitely need to be considered at the start of any kind of project like that.
Yeah.
And there is one thing I would like to add. It's not just about cybersecurity. It's as well about, which is pretty important in Europe, it's data privacy. So if your workers in the shop floor wear a camera helmet and are filming their colleagues, you have to make sure that this is all properly documented. It's aligned in Germany with the Workers' Council. So this is as well things that we are working on. And I think at Rolls-Royce Power Systems, we are in the meantime pretty good in having there a very streamlined process to get these things aligned and approved.
And I couldn't agree more with you. In fact, this whole subject has got a recent focus. When Facebook recently launched the Ray-Ban glasses, even though they are not, AR glasses, but the reality is that they've got cameras. And, I've read so many articles which have been talking in terms of the privacy issues, that when somebody is wearing that, how do you make out whether he's actually recording or not? Yeah, they're talking. I mean, basically what I'm saying is that we are all talking about, some. And you very rightly pointed out, it is not just cybersecurity, but which includes the data privacy, on which Europe is, of course, being the leader. At this particular point in time, everybody is looking at, how GDPR, kind of pans out. But of course, the question arises: how do you get the balance between innovation and GDPR? But that is going to be an eternal question. I thoroughly enjoyed my discussion with all three of you, and I think it's time to say a nice goodbye. Maybe enjoy a glass of wine in your or my part of the world. But any last comments that anybody would like to add? And let me again start with Raghu. Raghu, any last minute comments?
No, I think XR is now mainstream. I think we should not discuss anymore whether it is usable or whether it is the right technology to use. I think it's a tool which is available, and if you don't use it, you probably are not efficient enough. I would put it that way.
Very well said. Couldn't agree more. What about you, Hubert? Any last minute comments?
Totally can agree. I totally can agree to what Raghu said. And for me, it's really important that we now just move it out from the POC part and really roll it out massively into the organization.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
the
Rather
next
than
big
having
thing
only in the
for us.
innovation lab, but have it rolled across the whole organization. I couldn't
Yep.
agree. Alex, what about you?
Well, I think from all of our perspectives, we're very passionate about XR technologies, immersive technologies, and we want this industry to grow. And so from a Microsoft perspective, we're trying to make things as open and as easy to use as possible. So for example, our MRTK, Mixed Reality Toolkit, supports various devices, not just HoloLens, across mobile. And I think what we need to do as vendors, such as Microsoft, is to continue to make things as open and not closed off ecosystem, so supporting various things, because that's what we need to do. We need to work together and provide a platform that helps everyone to grow and help this industry to go to the next step, to go into the full enterprise deployments across
Wonderful
industry.
point. Absolutely. In fact, the debate between proprietary technology and open source, what happened in the case of Linux many years back is going to happen in XR, and it's very, very important. And it's very important that different devices that are talk to each other, kind of a thing. But folks, lovely. And I love the passion of all of us, and I only hope that passion pays the bills also. But with that, have a lovely morning, evening, night, whatever it is in your part of the day. Take care till next time. This is Pradeep from Sydney signing off.